We tend to think of scams as crimes of inconvenience or embarrassment. A stolen credit card, a drained savings account. A lesson learned the hard way, but on March 25, 2024, a phone scam crossed a line few had imagined possible. It didn't just take money, it took a life. That day, deception became a weapon, one that never had to be held to kill. This is the case of William J. Brock and Loletha Hall, two people who did not know each other, who never chose to cross paths, yet whose lives became fatally intertwined through fear, misinformation, and a voice on the other end of a phone line. An insane scammer planted a story carefully designed to terrify. A lie meant to pressure, a threat meant to control. And when that fear took root, it set off a chain of decisions that could not be undone. What followed was not a robbery, not a chase, not a planned act of violence, but a moment of panic that erupted into a hail of gunfire. One life ended, another was forever defined by that moment. In the courtroom, the questions were no longer simple. This wasn't just about pulling a trigger. It was about manipulation, about perceived danger, about whether someone acting under extreme fear can still be fully responsible for the consequences of a fatal mistake. Today, we examine a tragedy shaped by an invisible predator, one who never entered the room, never faced the victim, and never fired a shot. And yet, their fingerprints were everywhere. When fear is engineered, when reality is distorted, and when a lie ends in death, the justice system is forced to confront a haunting question. When fear turns into a fatal mistake, is it still murder? The morning started with terror for William Brock, an 83-year-old man living alone in South Charleston, Ohio. He became the target of a sophisticated grandparent scam. The voice on the other end of the line was calm, confident, and relentless. It told him a family member was in jail, that they were in danger, and that if Brock didn't act, if he didn't produce $12,000 immediately, blood would be shed. The threats weren't vague. They were personal. The caller described violence in chilling detail, escalating Brock's fear with every passing minute. For an elderly man already isolated, the phone became a lifeline and a weapon at the same time. But the scammers wanted more than money. They wanted control. They told Brock a representative would come to his door to collect the payment. They warned him not to call police. They implied the situation could turn deadly at any second. Slowly, methodically, they transformed his home into a fortress and his mind into a powder keg. By the time the call ended, Brock believed he was facing an imminent threat. Meanwhile, miles away, 61-year-old Loletha Hall accepted what appeared to be a routine delivery request on her Uber app. A simple pickup, a short drive, just another job in an ordinary workday. To Loletha, it was business as usual. To the scammers, she was expendable. They instructed her to go to Brock's address and pick up a package. They never told her the man inside had been terrorized for hours. They never told her he believed violence was coming to his door. And they never told her she was being sent into a situation primed for disaster. Two innocent people, strangers to each other, were now on a collision course, orchestrated by voices that would never be seen, never be identified, and never be held accountable. And in just a few moments, a knock at the door would turn fear into irreversible tragedy. When Loletha pulled into the gravel driveway, she didn't see a client waiting at the door. She saw a man holding a gun. The dashcam footage, later replayed in silence inside a courtroom, captures the moment fear crystallized into violence. Brock didn't ask for identification. He didn't call the police. He stepped forward, weapon drawn, demanding to know who she was and who had sent her. Loletha was visibly confused, her voice shaking as she tried to make sense of what was happening. She told him she was with Uber. She held up her phone, the screen still lit with the delivery request, hoping proof would calm the situation. But explanations require time and fear allows none. In Brock's mind, the scammer's warnings were unfolding exactly as promised. A stranger had arrived, but the threat was at his door. And everything he had been told pointed to one conclusion: this was the moment he had to act. As Loletha began backing away, her hands raised, she turned toward her car, instinctively choosing flight over confrontation. She never reached the driver's seat. The gunshots shattered the quiet of the neighborhood. Not one, not accidental, multiple rounds fired in rapid succession. Loletha Hall, 61 years old, a mother, a grandmother, a woman simply trying to earn a living, collapsed in the driveway. She was unarmed. She posed no threat. She had no knowledge of the scam, no connection to the voices that engineered the encounter. She was, in every sense, a ghost in their machine. When the gunfire stopped, the scammers were already gone and traceable, and reachable, and touched. All that remained were sirens, body on the ground, and a man who would soon realize that the danger he feared had never been real. And in that irreversible moment, a crime designed to steal money became something far worse, a killing with no true perpetrator in sight. In court, the defense painted William Brock as a victim of extreme emotional distress. They described an elderly man overwhelmed by fear, isolated, and psychologically cornered by professional scammers who knew exactly which buttons to press. They argued that his age, combined with hours of relentless threats, created a perfect storm, one that shattered his ability to reason. What happened, they said, was not malice. It was panic. It was self-defense born from terror. But the prosecution told a far less forgiving story. They walked the jury through the dashcam footage frame by frame. They emphasized choices, moments where Brock could have stepped back, could have lowered the gun, could have called for help. Instead, they highlighted the facts that could not be explained away by fear alone. Brock took Loletha Hall's car keys. He blocked her escape. He held her in place. She was trying to leave. She was trying to survive. The prosecution reminded the court that Brock never called 911 until after the gunfire ended, that Loletha was shot while retreating, that she was unarmed, that whatever fear Brock felt, the law draws a hard line between perceived danger and lethal force. The jury wrestled with the tragedy. They saw Brock's age. They heard about the scam. They understood how cruel and predatory the manipulation had been. But sympathy, the judge instructed, was not the same as justification. Fear does not grant permission to kill. Mistake does not erase consequence. After a brief deliberation, the jury returned to the courtroom. The room went still as the verdict was read aloud. Guilty on all counts, including murder, including kidnapping. William Brock was sentenced to life in prison. In the end, the court ruled that while scammers may have lit the fuse, Brock pulled the trigger. And Loletha Hall, an innocent woman caught in a lie she never knew existed, paid the ultimate price. The invisible predators vanished into the digital void. The victims remained, and the case left behind a haunting question that still echoes far beyond the courtroom. How do we assign blame when a crime is engineered from a distance and fear does the killing? If you want, I can help you craft a closing narration, a reflection on modern scams, or a final haunting line to end the episode. On February 2, 2026, the gavel fell. At 83 years old, a 21-year sentence was effectively a death sentence behind bars. In her remarks, the judge did not minimize the role of the scammers or the cruelty of their manipulation. She acknowledged the fear they engineered, the lies they weaponized, and the psychological trap they set. But she drew a line the court could not cross. Fear, she said, does not give one a license to kill the innocent. With that, the case of William Brock moved from tragedy into precedent. The shockwaves rippled far beyond the courtroom. For the gig economy, this case exposed a terrifying vulnerability: drivers dispatched to private homes with no context, no warning, and no protection. No panic button that could stop a bullet. No safeguard against being unknowingly dropped into someone else's nightmare. For Uber and Lyft drivers across the country, Loletha Hall became a symbol of the risks they take simply by answering a request. And for families of the elderly, the case sounded an even darker alarm. Phone scams are no longer just financial crimes. They are psychological assaults carefully engineered to isolate, terrify, and control. The elderly are targeted not because they are careless, but because they are trusted, protective, and often alone. The scammers understand this. They exploit love. They exploit fear. And increasingly, they exploit time, knowing that panic short-circuits reason. In this case, the cost was not a bank account. It was a human life. Loletha Hall's death forced the public to confront an uncomfortable truth. Modern crime doesn't always require a criminal at the scene. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon is a phone call. Sometimes the killer never steps foot on the property. And sometimes justice arrives too late to matter to the person who needed it most. William Brock will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Loletha Hall never made it home from work. And the voices that set it all in motion remain out there, still dialing, still lying, still hunting for the next person whose fear they can turn into tragedy. This was not just a scam. William Brock is in prison. Loletha Hall is gone. And the scammers, they remain anonymous, likely operating from another country, hiding behind spoof numbers and encrypted lines, entirely untouched by the blood they spilled. No arrest, no trial, no sentence, just silence. And the next call already ringing somewhere else. So we're left with the hardest questions of all. In a world where we're told to stay alert, to trust no one, to protect our own at all costs, where does the line between protection and murder begin? At what point does fear stop being understandable and start becoming deadly? Was William Brock a cold-blooded killer? Or was he the final victim of a scam designed to break the human mind? There are no easy answers here, only consequences. This case forces us to confront a disturbing reality of modern crime. The most dangerous criminals may never show their faces. They don't need guns. They don't need to be present. All they need is your trust and your fear. And when those collide, the damage can be irreversible. So let's talk about it. Where do you stand? Could this have ended differently? And who, in the end, bears the greatest responsibility? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. This is Crime in Casi Perfecto, where crimes are carefully engineered, consequences are anything but, and the truth is never as simple as it seems. Stay safe, stay alert, question the voice on the other end of the line. And if you want more deep dives into criminal cases that blur the line between guilt and tragedy, make sure to subscribe, follow, like, and comment. Your support helps keep these stories told. We'll see you in the next case.